process of making everything work?
So I think we're going to get started on our next panel. So of course we all know about social media and what it means to all of us in our family and friends today. This is by far the best panel, so everyone get ready. And I will forewarn you, I coach 2 baseball teams, and when my players don't listen, we make them run or do push-ups. So get ready to ask your questions, or we're all going to be on the floor here in a little bit. But in all seriousness, I think social media and the panel we just had before this are extremely interesting topics. It's really revolutionizing and changing not only the way we do business, but the way we secure the business. So as we've done so far with the panels, they're all going to get up and do a very short presentation, because I want to get as much time as possible to do Q&A. And with that, Ian, I think you're first.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. I have to admit, I didn't know what I'm walking into when they sent me here, and I'm actually very happy that I spent the day kind of talking to people and seeing what's being presented. So, lesson of the day: lower expectations, higher reward. So let's talk a little bit about social media, which is a big favorite topic of mine from an attacker perspective. So this is the adversary's workspace, all right? This is, if I'm trying to attack someone, if I'm threatening a company, this is what I'm facing as far as exposure. Everyone's on social media, whether you like it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you think you're preventing it or disallowing it or not, everyone is on social media at some point or another. And again, these numbers are already obsolete. They could have been from this morning. It doesn't matter. They keep spiking up. And I've seen this before today as well, kind of overlaying the OSI 7-layer model with the social engagement, the human element, which is really where we're focused right now as far as attacks go. So if you use in the past to attack the data layer, the network, and then we moved on to the transport, to the session presentation, the big buzz of the late 90s, early 2000s was the application security and web security. Now it's all gone, all right? We've got a lot of products and technologies that are trying to focus on that, and most of the attacks are successful because of the human element. And that's where really social media comes into play. So from an attacker perspective, we're seeing a huge shift from attacks that used to be conducted through emails and carry malware and social engineering, moving on to social media, again, because that's just more effective. And these are some stats from the industry, worldwide use of social profiles across the net, people responding to friend requests from strangers, about 40%, because people want to be connected. It's social, it's our nature, we want to be, it's like it's a high school competition. Who's got more friends? All right, admit it or not, it's real. I'm sorry. For most of you, it's probably not, because we're in the security industry and we're all like geeks and trying to, but for all the rest of the humanity out there, it's true, trust me. Ask your professors that come from like social sciences, they'll tell you. And the sad thing is that we have basically zero visibility into what's going on out there. As companies, as organizations trying to defend ourselves, we used to say, I own my email. So I'm going to put a lot of controls over it, and I'm going to say exactly what's permitted and what's not. I'm going to scan it, dice it, slice it, make sure that nothing comes in, comes out, whatever it is. Social media leaves us with, I'm going to block it. Good job. So you're blocking it on your network, but everyone's walking in with these, smart little things that has your corporate email on it and their Facebook, Yahoo, Twitter, Grindr, whatever it is, Twitter, I spent way too much time on social media, trust me. 2015 was kind of the inflection point where we saw a lot of those traditional attacks move on to social media because of that success, because of the fact that everyone's protecting their corporate assets all right? And in lieu of the fact that we've seen before all the shadow IT stuff, again, these are controls that are being put in place in the past few years. We haven't seen something that goes towards social media to protect the actual assets. And when I say assets, I mean people online. So again, Cisco, Intel, Barracuda, Trend Micro, they all have phenomenal stats that we're stealing from, and marketing is probably biasing them and abusing them to our advantage. But again, that works. So without further ado, I'll just jump straight into what is being done, what I have been doing in the past 15, 18 years before I joined the current company I work for as an attacker. So it applies to every company differently, all right? Some companies are more aware of impersonations, okay, and social engineering. Other are more adverse to propaganda and trend hijacking because that's their marketing. But this is what's being done on social media. I'll dive into a couple of examples just to kind of get a quick taste of it. Social phishing. And again, that's a big topic that everyone is aware of, all right? We've been indoctrinated not to respond to phishing emails. We still suck at it, but again, at least we're being trained not to. On social media, it's a completely different story. It's social, all right? I'm interacting with someone that is much more interactive. It's not like a asynchronous email that just goes out there and I need to respond to it in my time. Social media is much more interactive. So I'm discussing or interacting with something with someone that I potentially know or at least have some familiarity with, all right? It's a friend of a friend. So automatically I'm lowering my guard because I'm seeing data and interactions coming in from my social circles. And that happens all the time. Again, my esteemed colleagues will probably have their own stats but can back me up. We're seeing a huge shift from traditional email phishing towards social media because it just works. Account compromise, from a business perspective, that goes a long way. Again, we have a lot of controls over our websites, making sure that they're not SQL injectable, and the famous cartoon of defacing, the CIA's websites. Like, yeah, no one cares because it's just a website. Well, on social media, it's much more interactive. This is your representation. This is your voice out there in the world. It's not some static website. It's people interacting with people. So, in the good example when CENTCOM was hacked, that was a big deal. All right, the attackers were kind of stupid, fortunately for us, and they just blasted it with stupid propaganda. If I were to attack CENTCOM's Twitter account, I would just sit there initially and learn the patterns and pick up on what they're doing and who they're interacting with and look at the private messages and then slowly change the message a little bit. From a customer perspective, so we talked about an employee, we talked about a business. Let's talk about from your customer's perspective. And again, this is an example I had to get approved because it involves some of our partners here. But as a business, we have support on social media. This is our way to interact with our customers. What happens if someone else pretends to be my support and starts interacting with my customers and compromises them? All right? It's not my direct liability, but it's a bad rep for me, and I have to deal with that as an organization online. Now again, you can do that manually, but as any good scientist will tell you, do it once, great, do it twice, you need to do it third time, automate it. So we're seeing a lot of tools that automate everything that I talked about so far, from account compromise to impersonations to building up profiles that look legitimate, to controlling all of those, interacting with people, and again, this is Tinder. Again, a very, very popular social app. Ask your students around here, they'll tell you all about it. And you can automate, because everything's got an API, automate all the interaction and lure people to take actions, to check out my Facebook profile and click that malicious link, to interact with me on another platform that's going to make it easier for me to get more information on you. That's what the guys back there in the social engineering capture the flag are doing. Last but not least, everything can be bought. So if you need some more leverage, if you need some extra cred points, all right, $5 goes a long way. All right, there's a huge difference between my Twitter account that has a couple of thousand followers and Bruce Nier's Twitter account that's got tens of thousands of followers. But for $5, $10, $20, I could get all those followers and get that same credibility. So that kind of, dilutes or muddies the water when we look at social media and try to understand how does that affect me? How am I to read this landscape, and how am I supposed to act in it from a security perspective? Because these are not the controls that I'm used to over my, corporate network, email, and so on and so forth. Chuck?
Thank you. And I told you this was going to be the most interesting panel, and you don't realize it, but all of you have actually participated in this panel. And I think you're going to get to tell them. Ralph is from Wombat Security, and you're going to learn some interesting facts here. By the way, the clock's still running. "52 slides.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chuck. Good afternoon, everybody. As Chuck mentioned, my name is Ralph Massaro. I'm with Wombat Security Technologies. I'm from Pittsburgh, just flew in this morning. Brief little bit about us. We are a spin-out from Carnegie Mellon University. Happy to be here at University of Connecticut. And we take a different approach on cybersecurity. Our focus is on the end user. So we want to be able to teach people how to detect and avoid attacks. So that's what I'm going to be going through today. I know we're talking about social media, but it really revolves around social engineering. So what is social engineering? Well, we all know that it's the art of manipulation. It was intended to be for society to cause a favorable change. So that's the good thing. Unfortunately, the bad guys have turned it into an evil thing, and they're now using it to perpetrate crimes and extract information, what have you. So now the end user is the target. This is more than a year old, but you can see that 95% of all security incidents are related to human error. It's not just clicking on an email and downloading a malicious file. It's posting things on social networks, physical security, using a mobile device, downloading mobile apps. So these are all things that people are doing, and now we need to be able to educate them on how to be a little bit more secure while they're online. Social engineering takes a number of forms. Phishing email still tends to be the most prominent one. However, there are a number of other social engineering attacks that we see within our world, whether it be an individual impersonating somebody, hacking in their smartphone, social networking, which we've been talking about, social media, snail mail, and even fixed phone calls, right? People calling in pretending to be from Microsoft or the support of the IT team or something. So these are all social engineering attacks, again, that we need to be cognizant of and be able to educate people to identify and spot these types of attacks. I'm glad that we heard that you guys are doing Capture the Flag. That's great. How many of you have heard of DEF CON? Sure, of course, everybody has, right? Capture the Flag. What's interesting about this, just some highlight topics are obviously 20 social engineers they pick out of our group of, I think, anywhere from 100 to 200. 10 men, 10 women. They assign one man and a woman to a target, which is a company, and then they have to go out there and conduct research. And then when they come to the event, they then conduct phone calls. What's interesting about this, one, from the strict rules process, you cannot contact the organization prior to coming to DEF CON. You can't send emails, you can't make phone calls, you can't visit, unless it's an Apple store probably. But the intent is to obtain any information you possibly can that is freely available online. You then come to the event, they put you in a room, and you start making phone calls, utilizing that information to extract more information or confirming information that you were able to gather via the internet from somebody who works for one of these companies. And every time you gather information, it's a flag, you get points, and the winner gets a prize and gets recognition. I believe last year it was a woman who won, and I think they attributed that mostly to the phone calls, and she spoke to men, and men seem to be more willing to give information to a woman. So, I'm not sure if that's true, but she did win, okay? So we also know attacks are becoming more sophisticated, right? Particularly spear phishing attacks. These are really targeted now because there's so much information that is now freely posted online that I can use as a criminal to target a very specific, very targeted spear phishing attack. An excellent example, we have a client of ours who the CEO sent an email to their admin about a transaction, financial transaction. The admin conducted the transaction, $1.5 million. Within the email, basically the base of the email, the text of the email was, I am on vacation, I don't have access, can you do this? Well, the CEO was on vacation, so when the admin saw it, she realized this was true. Well, the CEO actually posted on Facebook that he was on vacation with his family. So again, he's posting information that's freely available, and as a criminal, I can use that information, of course, to conduct a spear phishing attack, which is exactly what they did. So from our perspective, everybody needs to be trained. I don't care if you're 14, if you're 75, if you're on Facebook, if you're retired and just want to conduct banking, everybody is a target for a cyber crime. You have a PC, you have a smart device, you do online banking, social media, anything, you are a target for a criminal. As much as we like to say technology is there to help, it is, but we know that technology is not 100%. Even with the DEFCON experiment, when I'm making phone calls in, technology really can't prevent that. Right? I've gathered information, I've made a phone call, and I've actually spoken to somebody. So technology can't prevent that. So really, instances like that, it really comes down to education. And make education freely available to people, so they can learn not just about phishing, but creating passwords, protecting their mobile device, mobile apps, social networking, what to post, what not to post. These are all things that everybody needs to be taught, and that's what we want to focus in on. Okay? These are just some other areas where we know that technology just doesn't always help. So, as Chuck mentioned, we conducted a little sample social engineering or phishing test to the recipients at this event. So we sent out some phishing emails. This is what it looked like. Talks about asking attendees to let us know their seating preference. Okay? So I don't know if some of you may have seen this, may have received it. It was sent out. When you receive the email and you click on the little link there, this link, what we then did was present them with what we call a teachable moment. Hey, you shouldn't be doing this. Is a training exercise, a simulation. We're here to help educate you, and this is how social engineers can, or criminals can trick you into doing things or downloading things. So the question is, what were the results? Well, I don't know if you can see that. We sent it to 78 individuals, of which 39 actually opened the email. And of those that opened it, 19 actually clicked on the link. So 25% of the recipients actually fell for this fake mock attack. So unfortunately, phishing works. And what we need to do is better educate people, not just in these types of attacks, but in all kinds of social engineering attacks and the use of social media. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, last but not least is Eric from Cyveillance. Known this man for a long time. You know, one thing I would say about these panels, especially this one, these companies, especially Cyberthreats, has been around for a while now, but it hasn't been a topic that has been that sexy, but it's made its way up into the boardrooms now. And I know a lot of times we look at these technologies and how we can implement them into our security programs and make them better. But I think where the real value is using them for awareness. And it's a completely different conversation when you can sit down with an executive and show them what their risk profile is on the internet and what potential hazards that is the next time you go talk to them about why you need to do X, Y, and Z. So with that, Eric?
Thanks very much, Chuck. My slides don't appear to be here, which is okay. I can do this entirely verbally. Okay. I'm just going to cut right to the chase. For those of you who don't know me, and I know some of you don't know my company, here's the only thing I'm going to say about my company. We're an open source intelligence shop. That's what we do. Technology supporting analysts. Oh, there I am. Thought Ian did a great job summarizing some of the things that we understand to be the threats and new types of security risks that emerge through the presence and use of social media. And I think that there's been a lot of focus on the use of social media by the adversary, which Ian talked about, and those are all really important things to understand. Given what I just said about what I and my company, what we do for a living, I actually think there are a lot of ways from an InfoSec perspective to think about social media. I actually expand this to the word cyber. People talk about cyber as though it is a practice or a discipline, and I just think it's a medium. Right? It's just an environment where stuff happens. And like anything else in InfoSec, I think you can see it through three lenses. attack, defense, and intelligence, as I said. The third is where I've spent my time. So I was very glad when the title I was asked to talk under for 8 minutes was, I believe it was cybersecurity risks and social media rather than cybersecurity risks of social media. So it gave me a little bit of leeway. And cybersecurity risks and social media allows me just to point out to the practitioners, perhaps to some of the smart young people back there, that you can do attack, you can do CNA, but only if you work for the government or you're unscrupulous. You can do C&D, and that's what a lot of folks will end up doing, is defending the networks against the bad guys. I just think it's important to note that social media is, because of its scale, its real-time nature, all the things that Ian spoke about, it is also a tremendous potential source of intelligence that can inform and help better defend networks and information. So, super simple real-world example. Small South American anonymous offshoot says, hey, I really want to hit this IP tomorrow at noon, but I don't have the horsepower to do it. Who's got ion cannons, right? That gave us and that enterprise 18 hours notice that somebody was trying to launch a DDoS. The great thing about the hacker and adversary culture is that many, not the most sophisticated, but many of them are more than happy, if not chest-thumpingly proud, to tell you what it is they're going to do. And so there are literally thousands, even tens of thousands of social accounts where you can track what's being said. Sure, some of it is misinformation, but the point is lots of bad guys actually announce what they're going to do, and social media is a great source for real-time intelligence on that sort of thing. I think there are two really important components to effectively using social media, because it is contextual, because it is human, because it is not entirely machine readable or parsable. The first component is, at the scale that Ian talked about, or that we deal with every day, you've got to have machinery. You cannot do the lifting anymore with people. Numbers on the screen are real and typical. For a well-known customer, brand, a company with a well-known brand, you could be dealing in anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 new mentions, items, pages, posts, etc. per day. You cannot put enough analysts on that. The government can't, certainly a commercial enterprise with its budgets cannot. So technology has to be part of the solution. The flip side to that, and I won't take you through this whole example, but the flip side of that is you also cannot rely on machines to do everything. Yes, you can take machine-readable indicators, you can take threat feeds, you can put them in firewalls and gateways and blacklists and ACLs and all kinds of good stuff, and all of that is necessary. But in the intelligence side, it often takes a human to say the machines have identified an alert, an indicator, the presence of an actor. But to summarize this example, it took an analyst in this case to go from a tweet to a corresponding set of online forums. That led to an IRC channel. That led to a Tor environment, and that led to a cache of specific planning documents for an attack against the customer. There's no machine I've ever seen that is going to read the content over time from those actors, connect the dots, and end up at the destination. I don't know any technology that does that, and I guess the presence of 40 or 50 analysts at my company says there is definitely a need for people in the process. I myself was an analyst for many years, and I love this stuff. The last comment I'll make before we get to discussion is just this. Where does cyber stop? As I said, I think cyber is a communication medium. The internet is just, the phone line for the next generation. My point is, if any of you work in the cyber end of your business, you probably get all kinds of requests from legal and marketing and physical security because, oh, call the cyber people. Right? And you get roped into all kinds of things that may not actually be in your portfolio of responsibilities. The examples on the screen are where online indication and warning of a physical world threat or event was a precursor to the event happening. And I will close with this. If threat intelligence was last year's RSA buzzword bingo, I believe convergence is this year's, because we are seeing large enterprises where even if it's because they are forced to by events, physical security and information security are being forced to talk to each other, because social media is a source of intelligence for both cyber and physical threats, and actors are converging. My favorite example, I'll flip back and close with this. Many of you may know or read Brian Krebs at Krebs on Security. He got somebody mad and they DDoSed his website and had the DC SWAT team kick in his door the same afternoon. So I think that convergence is coming. I think IT or InfoSec and physical security will be talking to each other out of necessity, and social media is a fantastic, rich, real-time source of intelligence for both. You start.
Thank you very much, and I want to open it up for questions, and I'll start with a question that I have. You know, we all know the threats very well. We see the threats all the time. But what are your thoughts on how to change the attitudes of people? For example, I've seen someone that has been phished that actually called to complain that, hey, I gave my user ID and password, and they didn't change whatever it was I'm wanting, and they're upset that they actually didn't change it. And then, you know, there's tough conversations that you have with executives when you're telling them, well, it's actually what your family is doing online that's impacting us. So I'd love to get your thoughts on, you know, how you're really helping that aspect of this and educating those people.
Let me start. Yeah. Oh, this is on. Okay, great. You're going to have individuals who just don't get it. I like to say that my that training is 100%. You know, technology is not 100%. Training is not 100%. But if we can greatly reduce the risk by narrowing that footprint down to hey, these are the individuals we know that continue to do dumb things, for lack of a better word. They're not malicious. They just do dumb things, and sometimes we can educate them. Sometimes we can't. We try to find ways to better educate people through a number of methods, whether it be through simulations of phishing attacks or social engineering attacks or in-depth training that focuses on changing behavior. At the end of the day, you're going to have people who get it, and you're going to have individuals who just, unfortunately, who just don't. So, good.
Just to kind of add 2 bits to it, I totally agree. I think that, again, some people say there's no patch for human stupidity. I completely disagree. There's education and awareness goes a long way. We're getting better at it. We're getting more to the point, and I think that what was mentioned here before, simulation and experiencing the actual attack goes a long way. So, you know, and we're doing a good job from shifting from those boring PowerPoints where you have to click through 40 pages of PowerPoint and then answer like three questions to something that's embedded into the life cycle that I don't have to experience in a set period of time of enrolling into something, but it kind of, you know, it's part of my job and I get exposed to it, and that's part of my behavior. And again, behavioral change doesn't occur after 40 slides of PowerPoint. It occurs after experiencing something and learning from it, and then experiencing it again and seeing the difference between those two.
And if I may, Jeff, 1 sentence on that. The last thing, hat tip to some people in the room, you must be relentless. The adversaries are, your training, your awareness efforts must be relentless and continuous.
You don't have a question? Man, I was disappointed. I was hoping we could actually get into the push-ups, but so far we're good. We don't have to. But, you know, the one thing I just want to add, and Shiva makes you good, is the theory that we all had back in the day that, hey, I'm smart enough to know it's a phishing attack. I can look at it and know, right? And I think a lot of us and a lot of individuals still have that attitude that, hey, I'm good. I can tell myself I'm a security professional, and you really can't today. It's,
no. Having led a number of exercises where, with the client's written consent, we red teamed the executive suite prior to a training session. Given enough reconnaissance time, I can craft a message that anyone will click on. It's just.
So, in that vein, you had mentioned DEF CON. At that exact social engineering meeting, the person who was organizing it made a point of saying that last year he himself clicked on a fish. The point being that, as you said, you can't really educate everyone. And so then, if I may make a controversial point, maybe we shouldn't be educating. Maybe by educating people, what we're doing is we're pushing the attackers towards more sophisticated and harder to detect attacks. Whereas maybe it really just should be people in the military or in sensitive areas who get good training and everyone else who does not.
Well, I guess you could, if you don't train individuals, then I guess the attacks get a lot easier. To say that people can't be trained, I think is an offense to people. We're in a university, we educate people on a whole host of topics. People can be taught. They can be taught to be doctors, lawyers, engineers. They can be taught how to be safe while online. People can be taught. Are the criminals going to get more sophisticated? Absolutely. That doesn't mean we're going to dumb down the user. We're going to continue to educate the user and strengthen our technology. Use tools like that Eric has and Ian has. I mean, we need to continue to do this thing because the criminals are going to continue to get more sophisticated. For us to say, hey, we can't train anybody, then therefore just throw it open.
I would liken it to an arms race. I would say that two comments. One is you cannot stand still because the adversary will advance whether you advance with them or not, and the gap will get wider. I know I sound a little the Dr. Strangelove story there. But the second thing is, actually, it also drives tremendous innovation. That constant arms race and competition pushes the white hats forward too.
And it's not about just relying on training and awareness. Okay, the training and awareness helps you on the top end. Obviously, what we all do, all right, and hopefully will do, is push up the bottom end as far as technology goes. This is what pays our our salaries on a daily basis, is advancing and closing gaps that we've had before. Before we didn't have any protections on those channels, and now we do. So we're not just saying if everyone was super aware and precog to whatever is happening, we would all be safe. No, it's about, again, and I think you pointed it out correctly. It's closing that gap and pushing it forward to increase the level of intensity or sophistication that the attackers would need to do. But again, it's going to be that good old chase that we've had with antiviruses and firewalls.
Job security for everyone in the room.
That's what I'm thinking. It's job security, not necessarily good security.
Don't tell anyone.
What type of analysis and technology can shift us to the left of this cyber-physical kill chain? You mentioned convergence, multi-domain, fusion. What specific types of analyses or technologies that are emerging can push us to the left?
Wow. Unstructured data analysis over time, the ability to correlate seemingly irrelevant events from the past, from the present, and come up with analysis that says, based on 1, 2, 3, 4, which can come from totally different domains. Again, cyber, physical, social, and can be from completely mixed media. It could be an alert log from somewhere. It could be an article that someone wrote on an independent blog, correlated with a car accident outside your facilities because a lamp was broken, and the ability to correlate those events and say, I'm seeing a convergence, I'm seeing a pattern here, all right, similar to something else. These kind of technologies is what I would look for as far as kind of reducing the reliance on human analysts and the ability to process what we call big data, but we're still not there.
I would add that probably the most enjoyable 5 of the 16 years I've been at this was writing algorithms so that machines could do more of the heavy lifting. And with exciting things in terms of data processing and analytics, Watson as an API, just as one example, you can start to do really big things with really big data at really cheap prices, I think a point that was made on the previous panel, right? So I think that a combination of machines teaching machines how to think, your machine learning and that sort of approach, and a subject matter expertise driven approach where you essentially encapsulate the smarts of those very scarce analysts. I think those approaches and every other thing plus the kitchen sink needs to be thrown at it from an analytics perspective. I think, bias here, as I said, I'm a former analyst. I think there is always a place for a smart analyst at the end of the chain, but we have got to get the 99.8% of the lift off of the analyst, because as I'm sure the folks in the next room can tell you when they get multiple job offers at the end of the year, There simply is not enough talent in the pool for humans to do the work.
So one of the questions I have is, and really I tell you what keeps me up at night, and I would love to hear everyone's thought on this, is educating the privileged users. And I think Chuck kind of hinted on this a little bit. Those who think I am way above this is so below me. And so what if I click on the link? Because if I click on the link, I could launch an attack right back at you. How do you change that mindset? How do you change that sense of immunity that comes with that privilege from a cultural standpoint? And quite honestly, I'll tell you why I'm worried about this, because I think where social engineering becomes more dangerous, and it's been used to date to steal data and use that data to either embarrass companies, industries, or whatever. But now the new vector of attack is not about stealing the data, it's about changing the data. It's about disrupting businesses with manufactured data. And how do you recover from that? Well, who's got the keys to the kingdom is the privileged users. And they are the #1 target of the phishing. They are the ones that probably see themselves above. Even if I click on the link, I'm still going to be immune. So I just love to hear your thoughts around this. And how do we address it from a technical standpoint, cultural standpoint, and organizational standpoint?
Let me start. From a cultural perspective, because I focus more on the education side. You're right, there are privileged users or individuals who think that they can't be tricked into clicking on a fish, or if I do, so what? We have, with our phishing tool, over 100 simulated phishing emails, and we rate them from anywhere from this is so easy, nobody should click on it, to this is so difficult, and we rate them. No matter how many emails we send out, even the ones that are so obvious, we always get at least an 8 to 10% click rate. So people are always clicking, even on the most obvious ones. So how do we get people to be more aware, or those privileged users? Some of the things that we do to help educate or get over those barriers, the cultural barriers, is look, the things that we're going to be teaching you are going to help you in your personal life. So I want to be able to focus some of these issues on their personal life. And they have a little more personal value, more interest in it from a personal perspective. They're much more willing to then take a look at, from our perspective, education. Let me take a look at these areas where I need to be more educated. Hey, this is a personal value. And then the way that we educate this cultural, this behavior change, when I go to work the next day, or I go back home that night, or I get my children or my wife or my husband using this, that education, that behavior change flows with me. But you're going to have some individuals who feel that I am privileged. We do have some clients, particularly, I hope I don't offend anybody here, with some law firms. Lawyers tend to be, I know it all and I can't different. I know it all. But they still accept the fact that, hey, there's a personal benefit here. So if I can get them to take training that way, change their behavior, and they come to work or go home the next day, then hopefully that training that education should flow with them. So that's one of the ways that we attack it.
My personal experience is experience. Have them go through a real life situation and have them see the consequences for real. And again, this is coming from me as a longtime red teamer rather than a ZeroFOX vice president, and working with people, with the most privileged people on the planet, who have security teams, physical security teams, and have financiers and everything you want around them, so they feel privileged. All right, they pamper that privilege. And working with these guys, not on a singular point in time exercise, but on an exercise that shows them, I was in your house. All right, here are pictures of your kids in the playground. Here's your login to your bank account or to your hedge fund, whatever it is, with me standing next to the button going see, I'm going to turn all this thing down. And again, it's not about a singular point in time experience of I shouldn't have clicked that link. All right, because that's a behavior that's very hard to change. It's about a string of behaviors, all right, or an experience, as I like to call it, where everything kind of fits in. So again, back to my, it's not about showing them a 50-slide PowerPoint. It's about having them go through that experience and realize the consequences. That's the only way that, again, that you can really drive the point to people who are privileged. And again, they're super smart, they have tons of experience, but they have never experienced real loss. So, we a lot of times have an opportunity to simulate a real loss to a point where it's really difficult to say, is this real or not? And when we're at the reins of that simulation, we can turn on the lights at the end of the show and say this was a show. But to get that look in people's eyes when they realize, oh my God, I thought this was real, and then turn on the lights, game changer.
Whom gods destroy, they first make proud, right? Those sysadmins, those privileged users, in some ways, they are vulnerable exactly because they believe that they're not. I would basically crib from both Ian and Eric's talk this morning. In fact, I asked him the question, which is exactly what you just said. Do not come with theoreticals. Punk them and then wave it in their face, because my sense is that the uber nerds will never accept that they can fall for something unless you make them. The other piece, which is on the enterprise or organizational side, and this is as basic as Eric's, what's on your wire, how it's configured, and what it talks to, which is know what's valuable, know where the proverbial crown jewels are, and know who has access. And the example I will use is the sort of domain hijacking that was a rash of attacks for a while, because the person who controls delegating the domain name to a host is a paralegal in the trademark department. No offense to paralegals in the trademark department, but in many cases the company does all its business through a website, and the person who's allowed to change the host for that website is someone who's 2 years out of college, right? So know what is valuable and make sure those keys are at least in the right hands.
So I think we have time for one more question, if we have one. One thing I will say, while you all think about your questions, is on the bottom of every slide, we've had our social media little symbols. So please go out there and use social media and talk about
just click on that. We'll send you a link.
I already tweeted. Just click on the link that I tweeted, and you'll be fine.
An email.
There you go. Good, because I really didn't want to do any push-ups.
I'll save it, Chuck.
But the one thing I do want to ask real quick before he does is, and you mentioned a little bit about RSA last year, and there was a big push about big data, a big push about metrics, big iron, and petabytes of data. And there's a lot of teams all focused on that and trying to find a needle in literally millions of haystacks. But at the end of the day, so many times you read and hear about a phone call coming, and they're like, all your credentials are on Facepen. And everyone stops all that work, and then they go run and try to take care of that specific incident. So what are you really seeing in the industry? You're starting to see a change in focus where they're getting away from the huge tech and the huge data repositories and focusing on what they can actually action and take care of.
I'll try to keep this to 2 sentences. First of all, there is definitely a lot of reactive action that happens because stuff does get out. There are some interesting things you can do with seeding credentials and stuff like that, so you can begin, like the watermarking discussion this morning, about try to trace how the stuff got out in the first place. So you can learn where the hole is. Otherwise, you're just perpetually putting your finger in the hole of the day. But the other thing I will say that's really important and ties to my talking to management question is you have got to be able to tie the efforts, which in turn require resources, which means asking for money. You have got to be able to tie back to something that management will care about. You've got to speak revenue, expense, profit, retention, churn reduction, compliance. You've got to speak something that management cares about if you expect to get the resources you need to solve the problem.
So,
You got it.
oh, there we go, sorry. So, what would you say is the role of the social networks in providing for a clean environment? One that is free of malware, one that does not have all this malicious activity running through it?
It's got nothing to do with it. The role of the actual social networks?
Yeah.
Zero.
So,
Their only purpose is to sell advertisements and to have more accounts. That's why they're not really fast on shutting down fake accounts. And That's their numbers. That's the numbers that they show to the investors and get more money for. So.
Yeah, so I get that, but let's just play this out in a scenario where Facebook, or pick any one, are overrun with malware and now become this haven for all of these bad actors. Users will presumably use Facebook less and less, which will obviously hurt their revenue, which will hurt their business. Bad outcome, obviously. So I would imagine that they do have a vested economic interest in providing for a clean environment. What do? Do they take action? Why don't they take action?
I can tell from working with Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, you know, my previous comment seemed like, oh, we don't give a shit, it's just whatever. Yeah. It's not. They invest a lot of money and resources in security, and some of my best friends who are like the best of the best in the world in InfoSec work there. Still, it's a balancing act for them. It's about how much do I invest to make sure that the environment is perceived to be clean. And again, it's all about the perception versus how much it's actually clean. And Bruce was here this morning. He's a big advocate of talking about the security theater. It's exactly the same. Again, they're investing a lot of money. They shut down a lot of the attacks really fast, really efficiently. They have, again, some of the smartest people out there working for them and doing phenomenal work. But again, for them, it's a balancing act of making sure that you feel safe. So that's going to be the extent of it. It's making sure that all the stupid attacks, all the blatant ones are shut down. If I want to attack you specifically, they're not going to find it. That's the key.
Yeah, and I think this is, if I may, to my earlier comment, back to something management cares about. If the perception is what's impacting advertising revenues, traffic, views, clicks, things that management cares about, they get money and really smart people get hired to take action. But where that, you know, that runs into a wall a little bit, and I only use Home Depot because I happen to know the numbers in my head, right? At the end of the day, after their insurance receivables back, it was a few tens of millions of dollars what that big breach actually cost them. Management goes, we did $78 billion last year, it's cost of doing business. So there are practitioners and director levels who passionately care about this, but they will only be resourced up to the point that management sees a benefit.
Great. Well, I think we should end by doing a selfie. So we're going to put on CyberSeed here in a second. Come on, guys. You got to get in here now.
Scooch in.
Come on in, Rob.
No, scooch in.
Are we in there?
Do you want to take a selfie, or do you want someone else to take a picture for you?
Oh, we have to do a selfie. Come on. There we go. Beautiful. Thank you very much.